Official. I'm Susan Richard, and here's what's happening. We are interviewing the candidates for mayor of New York City, and we begin with Republican nominee Curtis Sliwa. Thank you so much for being here.
Oh, my pleasure. Radio studio. It's like home away from home.
Exactly, and I understand that you need to start this interview with a little bit of a confession.
Yeah, I got to do a mea culpa, mea maxima culpa. 35 years involved in talk radio, most at WABC, where it was always broadcasting Curtis sometimes, three times a day.
Right.
I had to do show prep. Now, when I had to do show prep, I said, let me get the 22 minutes around the world. And listen first to Stan Brooks, the dean of the news guys, because he always had leads. And I took his lead and I followed. And then Juliet Papa was involved in the day-to-day 4 trials against John Gotti Jr., who was charged with my attempted kidnapping, killing.
Right.
And she had sources in the police, U.S. Attorney's Office, and the mobsters who were trying to kill me. So I would do a cheat sheet from her reports, and then I go on the air, and I sounded like I knew everything. I must now admit, like comedians who would steal jokes, at a comedy club from other comedians, they write it on a napkin. I was taking notes and taking credit for some of that. Bad boy Curtis.
Hey, we appreciate you listening. We have you trained, right? You give us 22 minutes, we give you the world.
It was always good stuff. Stan Brooks and Juliet Papa and your news team always delivered.
Terrific. Thank you so much. I want to start today with a serious topic. We're having this chat on what is the 2-year anniversary of the 10/7 Hamas attacks on Israel. You know, the war in Gaza, very hot topic here in New York City, differing views among different communities. And we're seeing among different age groups, different generations, pro-Palestinian demonstrations on college campuses, serious concerns about anti-Semitism. So the mayor's view on the situation in New York matters a lot. So what is your stance and what is your message on this day?
Well, look, it's 2 years. I remember when it occurred, the day of the kidnappings, killings, rapes, and total carnage at the hands of Hamas as they came across the barriers from the Gaza into southern Israel and then removed the hostages back to the Gaza, where many of them still remain. And I look back at all that has transpired, all the killing, the war that's existed in Gaza, how it's affected the world. Anything in the Middle East affects the world in so many ways. And I said, now that President Donald Trump has his peace plan, he seems like he has almost everybody on board, sending his son-in-law and Stevie Witkoff to Egypt to try to get the Middle East and Persian Gulf nations on board. This is a good sign. We need to bring this war to closure. But there are a lot of people hurting out there. And I'm hurting with them because I've been to Israel 3 times, and not just to stand at the wall, but to actually travel from the Golan Heights down to Eilat. And on the 50th anniversary, I traveled into Gaza when it was open. So I know all those areas, like the size of New Jersey. And we meet people who have relatives there who live in both countries. So today, in the commemoration and the memorialization, we cannot forget what occurred that triggered off this horrific violence that has plagued the area for 2 years.
Right. And what do you say to, there are different opinions, different people, real fears of anti-Semitism, even in New York City, right? Largest Jewish population, in the country outside of Israel. But then you've also got these pro-Palestinian demonstrators who, who feel like it's, genocide happening. So as mayor, both are your constituents. What would be your individual messages to them?
Well, we want to protect free speech. The answer to hate speech is more free speech. I've always believed that as a talk radio show host. I mean, if you didn't believe in that, you really shouldn't exist. But there's a time and a place for demonstrations. It used to be you had to get a permit. And you were in a limited time schedule, and you were in a limited area. And ever since Bill de Blasio, demonstrators decide what to do, when they want to do it, how they want to do it. With Mayor Sliwa in charge, that ends. We go back to the old rules. Everybody gets a permit. Everybody gets a sound permit. It takes 1 day at one police plaza. It's not difficult. And you can't be wearing masks. Look at what Nassau County did, Bruce Blakeman. He signed the law that says you cannot be wearing masks unless you have a medical or religious exemption. And that's worked splendidly. They still have their demonstrations. But you know what they stopped? Home invasions and robberies of people from New York City crossing the line right near Franklin Square from Queens, who were actually taking advantage of wearing a mask so that they wouldn't be on film. We have to do that here. It is ridiculous that you're in a demonstration, and we know why you don't want to be seen, because of who you are and where you're from, where everything has to be exposed. You have a right to protest. You have a right to take whatever position you want. But we've got to get back to the old rules that have completely been discarded, first by de Blasio, then Cuomo as governor, who didn't impose any rules, and then eventually Eric Adams.
All right, so you know what? I'm gonna jump to this since you mentioned the masks. You have talked about cops needing to wear their hats. What about, are you okay with masked ICE agents who don't ID themselves scooping people off the street wearing these masks?
It's uncomfortable, but I know some of the ICE agents, when they were called thugs originally by Andrew Cuomo when he was governor, and then basically they had to stay out of sight, out of mind, because they weren't welcomed in New York State or New York City anywhere, revived when Donald Trump was reelected president, and they feel that they're getting doxxed, that they're getting personally attacked, and people are taking advantage of knowledge of who they are. Look, you challenge that. If you feel that them wearing masks is a violation of constitutional rights, you go into court. You make your arguments. That's what the court system is for. I can understand why they need to wear masks. I would feel more comfortable if they weren't masked. But we're in the situation that we are. And I got to tell you, on behalf of ICE agents, when they were going after the bad hombres, as Trump first described them, the drug dealers, the sex traffickers, the narco-terrorists, the people who are responsible for bringing women in against their will to perform as prostitutes from other countries, we all applauded. Remember, people were applauding, especially when they were taking over whole buildings. Somebody in Washington, D.C. imposed a curfew, not a curfew, but a quota. Quotas never work. We saw that with stop and frisk. It turns the neighborhood against you. Mm-hmm. So now these ICE agents would rather not be spending time in a Home Depot parking lot picking up migrants to meet their quota. And quite frankly, they don't want to stand outside of a courthouse when somebody shows up who has been paroled into the country legally during the Biden administration, shows up for their court date, and then gets snatched up for ICE for deportation.
Which is happening.
It's happening, and it's a result of the quota, and that needs to stop. I would oppose the Trump administration on that and say, wait, if you need to get the really bad people, it's going to take a little bit of time, because as somebody who has led the largest world's crime-fighting effort voluntarily, the Guardian Angels, for years in 13 countries, 130 cities, and here in New York City since 1979, the criminals hide in the shadows. They're going to make it difficult for you to extricate them. But going into the back of a restaurant or the hospitality industry, these are essential workers. I have 3 sons. Not one of my 3 sons is going to work any of those jobs. So we need these men and women who are providing for the families, as long as they're not breaking the law. And I know some people say, well, they broke the law and they crossed over. We're never going to deport 20 million people. It may even be more. So let's go after the really bad folks who either committed crime in their country of origin or they're committing crime while they're here. Give them due process. Everybody is entitled to that. If they're found guilty or they plea out, you put them in a local jail or a local prison, and then you deport them. You can't have an easy pass where the next stop is that gulag in El Salvador.
Right. So then 2 questions. A, would New York City remain a sanctuary city under the Sliwa administration? And if Texas started busing migrants up again, what would Mayor Sliwa do?
Well, if I had been Eric Adams, if people had wised up and not elected him in 2021, because remember, there were only 2 of us, and I told you he'd be corrupt, and I told you there'd be chaos. He was meeting the first buses that Governor Abbott sent up at the Port Authority and putting them at the old Milford Plaza right there in Times Square at $400 a night, culturally appropriate food, all kinds of health services that our own veterans and homeless and emotionally disturbed don't get. And then he was the Biden of Brooklyn. And then all of a sudden, that didn't work out. Then all of a sudden, he became the puppet of Donald Trump, who saved him from going to jail with Bobby Menendez. He was wrong for doing that. I would have been there. I'm a humanitarian. I would have said everybody on there was told they should come to New York City. It's the best place to be. They're right. You can all take a bathroom break. We're going to give you box lunches. But really, we're sending you back to D.C., where Mayorkas was welcoming you, Biden and Harris. Let them deal with it. They were your inviters. We're not inviting you here because we have no provision for putting you up or caring for you. That was a federal administration decision. They should have turned the nation's capital in a sanctuary for the migrants. Now, in terms of continuing in sanctuary city, I would leave it to the people. I'm opposed to sanctuary city. So you have Cuomo and Zoran Mandami that are in favor of it. I'd say, okay, let's put an initiative and referendum on the back of the ballot, which Eric Adams could have done twice but chose not to because he knows, having gone into especially the black community, there's a lot of resistance to a sanctuary city. Why not put it up for a vote? And I'm mayor, and I got to deal with the decision of the people. I trust people. I don't trust politicians. I don't trust billionaires.
So
they all have their own agenda. People are going to vote the way they feel, and that would have caused a lot of people to come out and debate it. You would have had more people voting with that initiative on the back. Because we're always talking, how can we get more people to vote? They're passionate about issues, not so passionate about politicians.
So, so just if I'm hearing you correctly, with all those busloads of people, you would have, as you just said, given them a bathroom break and a box lunch and put them on another bus and sent them to Washington,
D.C. Yeah, and explained in the language of origin. We would have had translators there. No disrespect, but we didn't invite you. You were invited by the president in the White House. In the Naval Observatory, there's Vice President Harris and Mayorkas. We're sending you to them. They are responsible for your housing, clothing you, and figuring out what to do with you, not New York City.
Okay. So you're wearing the beret. I thought maybe you wouldn't be because you're running a new TV ad without it. So what's that about?
Well, remember, I just came off the streets. That's where people identify me and come up to me. The same reason I say cops got to wear their hats.
Right.
Some of these cops, I have no idea who they are when they're on a subway platform or they're in the streets because they're dressed almost like average everyday people, except they're in a blue uniform. So for the purposes of assuming that you are like the partnership of New York City that now has a new director,
right, Stephen Phillip,
Catherine Wild. When I speak to them, when I speak to the business world, when I speak to people who object to the beret, although they don't quite understand what this beret represents, 6 who've died as guardian angels protecting people, 3 dozen others seriously injured, is in honor of their service and sacrifice, and also people who identify this. When I'm in the subways, I'm coming to the aid of the homeless and emotionally disturbed. But for those who can't get beyond the beret, I make this deal to them. Elect me mayor, and I'll never wear the beret again.
So yeah, you've been in the public eye since 1979, correct? I mean, I remember when Ed Koch was mayor and Curtis Sliwa with the Guardian Angels. I mean, I totally remember. So they may not recognize you without the beret, but they know who you are,
yep,
and they know the name. So where's the disconnect? Is it possible that people think of you more as Curtis Sliwa, Guardian Angels, radio personality, and not as a political leader? Where is the disconnect if you're such a household name?
Well, thank God they don't consider me to be a political leader because we've had a complete disaster with the 3 amigos, de Blasio, Cuomo, and Eric Adams. Could it be any worse? Just yesterday, I had the endorsement of the best mayor in my lifetime, the law and order mayor, Rudy Giuliani, who took a hopeless situation from David Dinkins, 2,000 murders a year, 10,000 unsolved shootings, and brought stability and peace and made us the safest big city in America. So it was great to get his endorsement. And remember, we can never forget how important he was to all of us all over America after the attack on 9/11 when we didn't know where our president or vice president was. And he calmed us. Mm-hmm. He gave us good focus. And he continued to be a great leader. So I was honored to receive his endorsement in a field in which now crime and quality of life are big issues, up there with affordability and the cost of living. So it's almost like neck and neck.
Right.
And I'm the only law and order candidate because clearly Governor Andrew Cuomo in 2019 created no cash bail and every mechanism that has turned criminals loose. And in 2025, he can't reinvent himself. And Zoran Mandami is Bill de Blasio on steroids. So whether you're on the left or the right, they hate Bill de Blasio. Even though he's very affable, most people don't know who Zoran Mandami is, so I describe him as Bill de Blasio on steroids and clearly in favor of criminal rights and not victim rights.
All right, so we're going to talk about those 2 key issues, public safety and affordability, which I feel like have been big issues forever. That's not new, that those are 2 big issues in New York City. So I understand you have a new security detail?
Yes.
Okay, so what is that about?
I've
What's
never
going-
had armed security in my life. And that includes after I was shot 5 times with hollow point bullets on June 19th, 1992 by the Gottis and Gambinos while I was going to host the morning show at WABC with my wife Lisa at the time. It was Angels in the Morning.
Lisa, who used to work here.
Yes.
You know,
And over at Fox 5
terrific,
now.
terrific
Lisa
reporter.
Evans,
Yeah.
Great reporter. So I never had armed security. But because of tension, and through nobody's fault, it's not Zoran Mandani supporters or Cuomo supporters, but there's so much tension in the air. You got to drop out. You got to drop out. These were the same people on June 24th when Cuomo threw in the towel and admitted that he had lost decisively to Zoran Mandani, who was saying, you got to drop out, Curtis, for Eric Adams, got to drop out. How would that have worked out now that Eric Adams is over in Albania and had dropped out of the mayoral race? So now there's this frenzy that somehow I have to drop out. I'm a mainstream candidate. I'm
Yeah, I
not
wanna
an
show you something.
independent candidate like Eric Adams.
So this was in the Daily News yesterday.
Yes.
I don't know if you can see in the thing, it's Sliwa for mayor. On one side it says "in it to win it," the other side it says "for Mamdani."
Yeah, because
so
the
this
Daily
is the
News
pressure.
has advocated that I drop out. Well, hey, how about telling their candidate, Andrew Cuomo, to run a race, be out in the streets, have contact with the public, which he seems to have a phobia of. Don't ask me to drop out. I'm the mainstream candidate. Zoran won the Democratic primary, fair and square. I am the Republican candidate. Try to find Andrew Cuomo on the ballot. He's an independent. So the billionaires are constantly stirring the pot. You need to drop out. Now, they are not responsible for the threats that have led to my first ever armed security. It was the fact that now my wife, Nancy, who's a saint, is being targeted, who's like the female version of Dr. Doolittle. She talks to the animals, takes care of the animals, and they're threatening her too. And that's because you have people who are very dysfunctional in our world. We've seen that, who believe that they're on a mission and that my presence in this race would guarantee that Zoran Mandani becomes the mayor. So I or my wife have to be hurt or eliminated to do that. So I
Which
have no
that's
other
crazy,
choice.
but that's crazy that people
And
threaten
nobody
that
knows
violence.
the streets better than me. Nobody has their finger on the pulse in terms of the attitudes of people better than me. So I decided better be safe and secure. Let the people determine who is going to be the mayor of the city of New York, not the billionaires, not the professional political class. And I'll live with their decision. I trust people.
Right. So the thing is, I mean, it's crazy that there's violence, even the threat of violence against you. That's horrific. So after Eric Adams dropped out of the race, a recent CNN poll right after that did give Mamdani 45%, Cuomo 30%, yourself 17%. So that's where the thinking is that if you're polling this distant third, it's as if you're handing Mamdani the race. No validity to that at all?
You know why? First off, my main mentor in this race is former Governor George Pataki. It was November 2nd of 1994. The poll said he would lose to Mario Cuomo by 12 points the day before. Because remember, there was no early voting back then. You voted
Right.
on November 4th, absentee ballots. He won by 3 percentage points. We saw Trump-Harris. It was supposed to be neck and neck. Trump won the popular vote and the 7 battleground states. And in the Democratic primary, Cuomo was supposed to have a coronation 2 months before. He was 40 percentage points ahead of Zoran Mandani and the rest of the Democrats running in the primary. He lost by 13 points. So people say, well, the polls are always wrong. Well, why do you believe in the polls? I was before a Jewish group of esteemed leaders. And I said, part of the problem is you haven't done a very good job convincing your children, grandchildren, and great-grandchildren not to vote for Zoran Mandani. You haven't had a come to Hashem meeting. We Christians, we'd say a come to Jesus meeting. We're like tough
Right.
love. Oh, I don't believe that poll. Oh, but you believe the poll that says that I'm in third place and I have no chance. So you selectively believe what you want to believe. This is not a race about polls. We're going to have a whole bunch of polls between now and November 4th. People have to accept I'm the Republican candidate. The time to have challenged me was a Republican primary. I'm not dropping out. I'm a mainstream candidate. I've raised more money locally than Zoran Mandani, Eric Adams before he dropped out, and Andrew Cuomo have with matching funds. I'm on TV. I have 10 headquarters in the 5 boroughs. They don't have any headquarters. I have posters all over the place. What do I tell my supporters? Oh, I'm dropping out. I want you to vote for Andrew Cuomo. They won't vote. They hate Cuomo. Remember, a lot of people hate Cuomo for the deaths of the 15,000 because of his executive order in the long-term nursing home care units. He never apologized for that. And for no cash bail, which has led to this crime trauma that we're living in. And he doubled down on that in the primary. So to assume that Sliwa voters are going to vote for Cuomo, you know what they're going to do, most of them? They're going to stay home.
All right, let's get back to crime and public safety. You have said you want to hire an additional 7,000 cops. Let me pull up my little crime stat fact sheet.
So for this, because of public safety.
Okay, all right, there you go. All right, so latest stats from the NYPD, shootings down 20% for the first 9 months of the year, lowest since they started keeping record 1994. The only major crime to see an increase was reported rapes, jumped 18%. They attributed that to a change in the law that broadened the legal definition of what exactly is rape or sexual assault. Subways, safest third quarter on record, subway crime down 4% from last year, et cetera, et cetera. Basically, one of the, safest large city. So if that's what the stats say, why do we need another 7,000 cops? And where's that money coming from?
First of all, nobody believes that.
So it's a lie?
No, I've been in all 350 neighborhoods. I'm in the subways every day. I've yet to have somebody come up, oh, Curtis, you're exaggerating about the crime. Nobody believes that. People feel unsafe.
Are you saying the
women.
NYPD is lying?
They're cooking the books, and I'll tell you how.
Okay.
If I pull out a revolver and shoot at you, but I don't hit you, I hit an inanimate object, a pole, a tree, a bird. I blow out the back window of a Toyota Corolla, but I don't hit you, my intended target. You know, that's not a crime. That doesn't go down at the books as a shooting in New York City. You find that odd? They immediately eliminate. And that's what's led to these retaliatory shootings now between these juvenile gangs. Because we raise the age. 90,000 packages a day get stolen in New York City. The mayor has publicly admitted that. So your FedEx package, Amazon, USPS, UPS, stolen. You go to a precinct, you try to report it, they won't take a report. You know how many arrests a day take place for porch pirates stealing packages? None. Mail at the end of the month that gets stolen from the mailboxes? None.
All right, so you're saying this anecdotally, or you have evidence of this? Or
evidence. There's evidence. Tell me the last time somebody has been arrested for stealing packages. They're on video. Not all of them wear masks. They wave. They do it boldly, brazen. New York City Police Department tries to create this nirvana situation. Oh, it's never been better. Nobody feels safer, especially women. Women are the majority of the workers. Women are in charge of single-parent households raising children. They work in nightlife. They manage. They own restaurants, bars, nightclubs. They don't feel safe. They say, I don't have enough money to yellow cab, Uber, Lyft back and forth. I can't use the subways. I'm being perved on, sexually harassed. There are deviants down there, emotionally disturbed persons. Who in their right mind has come forward and said, I feel so much better in New York City? Why don't they put a coalition of New Yorkers who say, it's never been safer? You can't find them.
All right, so
they're not out in the street.
So you say 7,000 more cops, but you also talk about reducing the NYPD overtime, correct?
No, the way I bifurcate it is there are plenty of the younger officers who are hungry for overtime because in their first 5 years they make nothing.
Okay.
They're sleeping in the basement of their mom and dad's house because they're so poorly paid, so they'll take overtime. But there are a lot of other cops who it disrupts their domestic life, their family life. They don't want the overtime, but it's forced overtime. You see, this is being done by bureaucrats who have no sensitivity for the average cops who get assigned to patrol duty. You have to give overtime to those that want to work it, who look forward for it. Don't give it unless it's an emergency situation to people who you're going to ruin their family life and cause all kinds of problems, which means they're going to be a less effective cop out when they do have to do that forced overtime. See, there's no understanding from the street perspective, from the subway perspective of the life that a cop goes through.
All right. So you also talk about bringing back the NYPD's homeless outreach unit that was transferred by Bill de Blasio to the Department of Homeless Services. So are you talking about having the NYPD deal? What are you talking about?
Well, the homeless outreach unit was magnificent. I worked with them, with the Guardian Angels, in the subways and the streets. They have had 25 medical practitioners with them who accompanied men. There were 125 police officers involved with that, men and women who were actual cops. So they talk about, we want healthcare workers out with the cops to deal with the emotionally disturbed and dealing with domestic violence. They already had it. They disbanded the unit. They don't want that story told. I worked with them. They had access to the homeless shelters. They knew the executive directors, the security assigned. They were able to go in and out. Do you know right now a uniformed police officer is not permitted in any of the shelters of New York City, whether they're for our people or migrants? They can't even go inside unless there's a 911 call. Now you say to yourself, the homeless outreach unit used to go in and out and deal with problems. They knew the homeless and the emotionally disturbed. Department of Homeless Services tells the cops, our clients will have post-traumatic shock syndrome if they see a uniform. Are you freaking crazy? Whoever issued that order, they're fired. Cops are going to be welcomed into homeless shelters because they will resolve issues before they pour into the streets. I've seen that myself. That's why they want executive order. We're putting that homeless outreach unit back into effect. There's a borough command in each of the 5 boroughs. They are the best at dealing with these issues. Ever since then, it's been a complete disaster.
Okay, and are you for picking somebody off the street involuntarily, a homeless person or a mentally ill person, involuntary hospitalization?
Well, let's look at them in 2 ways. Homeless people, a lot of them, are in control of their mental and physical faculties. A lot of them will not go to a shelter. There's like 350 because they're dangerous. There is no rules and regulations. It's Darwinian, survival of the fittest. They've been sexually assaulted. They've been robbed. They've been beaten. Look at the story of Dorina Kuam. Remember, that was the woman who was burnt alive on that F train back on December 22nd of 2024. She was in a woman's shelter in the Bronx. She had come from New Jersey. They beat her. They took all her money. She went. She started living in the subway. Look at what happened as a result. See, I spend time talking to the homeless people. We've got to make sure that the shelters are safe and secure. They'll return. Nobody wants to sleep in a subway. I mean, I suggest, like to Zorhan Mandami, who said, my plan is to house homeless people in the empty storefronts in the subway system.
Well, what he specifically said is that empty storefronts, he would use that to provide as a place to provide services. I don't know that people would actually be housed there, but to provide resources to those people.
Yeah, he's obviously never been in the subways. That is the most toxic environment. First of all, there's rats, there's mice, there's roaches, paint decaying. You might have to turn that into a Browning field. It is so toxic. So he has no empirical knowledge of actually what goes on. Make the shelter safe and secure, and most homeless people will stay there. Now, the emotionally disturbed, that's a completely different subject.
Okay.
We have shelters for them. They're called MICA shelters. Extraordinarily dangerous. They need to be in state housing, hospital facilities where they're there being cared for. Andrew Cuomo, when he was governor, when he was first elected, there were 40,000 beds for those men and women. By the time he fled, fearing impeachment, to the Hamptons to be with his billionaire friends, 4,000. He cut the budget, pushed the people into the streets. They haven't been brought back since. So, yeah, we need to get them into mental health care hospital. Now, I'm going to be sued. You know, the likely suspects, Coalition for the Homeless, Legal Aid, New York City, Civil Liberties Union.
Yeah, they're against that, right.
We got 1,000 corporate lawyers who are always settle. No. Hey, you're a corporate lawyer. You work for the city. You go in and fight. We win some, we lose some. But the taxpayers got to understand I'm protecting their money. And most importantly, I'm trying to care for people who cannot take care of themselves.
All right, let's talk about affordability. That's the other hot topic. You have said you hate Mayor Adams' City of Yes program because you say it inappropriately takes zoning control away from neighborhoods. You also say the first thing we need to do is to get the thousands of vacant apartments renovated before we start building new housing. Specifically, you say on your website, incentivize the rehabilitation of vacant rent-controlled units by reducing red tape, making capital improvements feasible for landlords, reform rent regulation policies so that landlords can make the necessary repairs without financial loss while keeping units affordable. So are you saying that the city would pay for renovations in privately owned apartments?
Well, remember, first let's start with the apartments that they do control in NYCHA, public housing.
Right.
There's 6,000 empty apartments. How can the mayor talk about a housing crisis, and you haven't even filled these apartments that you control? For years, they've been empty, 6,000. We have families in shelters who could immediately be moved into these facilities. They're all over the 5 boroughs. There hasn't been a movement to do that. Then you have the rent stabilized apartments. There's about 28,000 that are empty. You have to talk to the landlords. Why do you keep them empty? Well, to be honest, we're afraid of a deadbeat tenant or a squatter. And then it's a nightmare. Where's the nightmare? Tenant-landlord court. Doesn't seem to be fair and balanced for both tenants and landlords. You have to try to come up with a compromise to get them to put it back in the marketplace. They'd rather take a loss because they don't want to deal with the nightmarish aspects of having people who refuse to pay. Remember, during the lockdown and pandemic, Cuomo said you don't have to pay the bus fare. You don't have to pay your rent. A lot of people still not paying their bus fare, still not paying their rent. So it all goes back to when Cuomo, through an executive order, tells people you don't have to pay your rent. And some of them are still there, haven't paid for 5, 6 years. And then you have all these owners of homes where they actually live on the property. They're not absentee landlords, where they have 3, 4, 5 apartments in their building, and they won't rent it out if somebody dies or moves to Florida. They'd rather it be empty, even though their sewage rates have gone up, their water rates, their electricity rates, fees, fines. You got to buy now garbage cans from the city. It's a shakedown. It's extortion. We got to give them relief.
Right, but you're specifically, and your policy statement talks about making it more, assisting landlords, incentivizing the rehabilitation. What does that mean?
Well, you're really assisting tenants to be able to get into an affordable unit by compromising with the landlords. Neither side is going to win this, because if a landlord abandons the property and walks away, like in the 70s, when I started the Guardian Angels in the Bronx, and I saw abandonment at a peak, then you're going to have a city that is just going to dissolve. You'll have the sequel to Kurt Russell's Escape from New York. I want to improve. I don't want people to move. And
but what's the incentive then for the landlord? How do you incentivize them?
The incentive is you have to let them know that you're going to be working cooperatively with them along with the tenants. Right now, we don't tell that to landlords. Basically, it's a tenant-based government that we operate in without the landlords making apartments available in the rental area. Well, look, we don't even let 6,000 apartments get rented or utilized in NYCHA. We are not utilizing the resource we already have. Now, you want to build new affordable apartments in the outer boroughs, especially or Manhattan, that's fine. But you cannot just all of a sudden do away with zoning restrictions, meeting with the local elected council person or the community boards. This is Eric Adams on Gone Wild. He is helping his developer friends. So when you vote for me, hopefully, on the front of the ballot, you will also turn the ballot around. You'll see the initiative and referendums and vote no on all of them. Because if you're living in a residential area or you're living in an area where you have some control of what gets developed, you will lose all control. It'll be a developer's party. They'll be able to go into any neighborhood, put up a 40-story building without parking, no capital improvements in order to make money. And they'll probably not be the affordable apartments they promised. You just look at Ratner's development by Barclays Center. He's still in court. He had promised he would provide affordable apartments.
Right. So,
and they delay the process.
So we looked into that, and you know what that reminds me of? You know when you have like an email thread with 20 people on the email thread, and there's so many emails in the thread that you can't find the information you're looking for because it's been going on for so long. But with that, the short version is that they have about just under 1,400 apartments of about 2,250 that were supposed to be developed.
Right. And look, you know how long that was? I remember standing there with Bertha Lewis, the most radical community organizer ever in Acorn. And across the street, there was Tish James, who was the local councilwoman, Working Families Party. She wasn't a Democrat then. She said they will not live up to the promise. Bertha Lewis believed Ratner. She doesn't believe him anymore.
Well, part of the issue with that was because it's like it changed hands, and then somebody went into foreclosure, and it's like it's changed hands.
Isn't that what always the developers and realtors say?
So as Mayor Sliwa, what would you do about that situation specifically?
Well, first off, I would tell them, keep your greedy hands off of parkland and wetlands. You are not invading. We don't have enough parkland. We don't have enough wetlands. Number two, you're going to abide by the rules. Each community will make its own decisions. I believe in giving power to people in the communities. I remember when I was in 4th grade, Alan Topol, my best teacher ever at PS 114, told me, Robert Wagner, the mayor, created community boards to actually let communities decide about their fate. That's when we had civics classes, which they don't have any longer. I thought, wow, he gave up power. I'm a little kid wondering that. Hey, Mr. Topol. Yeah, he felt the communities were not being able to control what goes on in their community. Now we're in 2025. Eric Adams, who's one and done, wants to reward his developers and realtor friends that Cuomo is now benefiting from. Zoran Mandami doesn't believe in private property, so bring the wrecking balls in. I'm the only one standing in the potentiality that residential areas will be destroyed as a result of this, what I call amplified City of Yes. It's the ballot initiative on the back. If there's one thing you do, vote for me in the front for mayor, and in the back, no on all the initiatives.
All right, you brought up school. Let's talk about education. So a new headline, you want to take $10 billion out of public education, correct?
All at the top. The bureaucracy. You go to tweet, this is funny. Tammany Hall is at the Tweet Courthouse, which is right behind City Hall. The most corrupt political organization of all times. You look at the bureaucracy at the Department of Education, top-heavy. 13 deputy chancellors, 50 department heads. Finally, principals can hire their own staff and teachers. And I've been to enough schools and said, you know who the deputy chancellors are? Never saw them before in my life. You know, the department heads, to be honest, I operate here, they operate there. Why are we spending billions of dollars on this bureaucracy when we're not spending money where it needs to be in the classroom? Teachers are still reaching into their pocket, having to spend their own money to buy basic supplies. We're spending $42,000 now per child, 100,000 less students in the system. 1/3 of them are truants. By the time of 4th grade, 2/3 cannot read, write, or do math at grade level, and we're pouring more money into this system. We will find locations. Robert Holden, great councilman. He leads Democrats for Sliwa. He's term limited out in Middle Village. He was a teacher for 40 years. He would be an advisor in terms of where to cut and where to make sure that the teachers are getting cared for with the students. And by the way, they have this restorative justice now. I knew when I went to school, if I was a bad boy, the dean would come for me. And I didn't want the dean calling up my mom or my dad or my grandparents. Now there's no such thing. You don't get suspended, expelled. You never get arrested by the cops for being violent in school towards another child or a teacher. They have restorative justice. You sit there with a moderator, and the offender says, cross my heart, hope to die, I'll never do it again. Oh, everything's nice now. You can go back to the same classroom. The teacher goes, what? This guy hit me upside of the head with the ruler. You're putting him back in my class. Oh, well, we're restorative here.
And so what would you do?
I would say we go back to the old system. Suspensions, expulsions. We have alternative schools for the troubled youth who need additional focus to try to relieve them of whatever problems they're having at home or what's going wrong with their mental health or physical issues. We also used to have after-school center. So from 3 to 5, you had after-school center. You go home, get something to eat, come back to his night center from 7 to 9. They were also teaching English at night to immigrants.
So, but cutting $10 billion, do you want to cut $10 billion or do you want to take that money and reroute it to some of these things that you're talking about?
Well, some of it gets rerouted into public safety. We took $1 billion out of the police budget in the summer of 2020. We never put it back. Eric Adams never put it back. That's why you have all this incredible overtime that wouldn't be needed if you actually properly funded the police department. And then the Department of Buildings, that's another agency that you have to look. So you got to go through agency by agency. You have to have an accounting. There has to be transparency. And they have to issue reports every month about what they're doing and how much money it's costing. Right now, you can't get any information. And I would strengthen the Department of Investigation, which went before the city council and say, we have thousands of cases that we have to investigate. We need additional lawyers and additional investigators. That would be money well spent to rid corruption. But Eric Adams said no, of course not, because most of the investigations would be of his administration and his mayoralty.
So when you talk about going agency by agency and basically looking to cut the fat, would that include reducing staff, reducing the number of city workers, layoffs?
Duplication. There's a lot of duplication.
So there might be layoffs.
Right. And look, that's going to take a period of time. That doesn't happen from day one. You get the spreadsheets, you get the experts. I'm not omnipotent. Like all these previous mayors, they all act like they know everything. I know I don't know everything. I will have the best advisors available, many of whom are retired, who grew up in this city. They love this city. They were really dedicated civil servants, or they did well in the private sector, would be more than happy to come in and help because they see the city's in peril. The state has told us there's a $34 billion budget gap. Tom DiNapoli, the Democratic controller. That means our monies get cut from the state. Trump has already cut food stamps, Medicaid. He's going to cut NYCHA. And we have a budget, $118 billion budget, that is just outsized with no reserves and no rainy day fund. We're looking potentially at a fiscal crisis like we had in the late 70s, which led me to form the Guardian Angels because there were no transit police at night.
And Trump is not particularly a fan. I mean, he's even made fun of you being a cat guy. What do you think about that?
Look, he's entitled to his opinions. I've had a love-hate relationship with Donald Trump for a long, long time. First, he saved Eric Adams from going to jail with Bobby Menendez because Eric Adams is a crook. And then he was talking and having communication regularly with Cuomo. He suggested that people vote for Cuomo. Now he's saying it'd be better to have Zoran Mandami as mayor because this would be the best president ever for the GOP. They'd win the midterm elections, and Elise Stefanik could then campaign and say, next year for governor, first thing I'm going to do is fire Zoran Mandami. So he has an opinion based on what week it is. I've said to the president, deal with Gaza, make the peace there, which he's moving on now, and between Russia and the Ukraine. That's where your time, energy, and focus is more needed than in a mayoral election.
You've said that to him on the phone?
No, I don't have personal communication with the president. I don't have any malice towards the president. I don't have any regular contact with the president. But I've certainly said it enough times publicly that he knows that. I've said that to people who are close to him. And now it seems like he is focusing on Gaza. All his entire energy is to bringing peace between Hamas and Israel.
Okay, I have two more. I have one more question, and then I do want to talk about your animal advocacy,
Sure.
which I know is very important to you. So what, because we're talking about Trump, what does it mean to be a Republican in New York?
Well, I'm the kind of Republican like Abraham Lincoln that can be identified in all 350 neighborhoods. People see me, they say, that's Curtis, that's the Guardian Angel. He is a populist. They don't view me as MAGA. They don't view me as a normal member of the Republican Party because they know I've been out there for the people. They don't identify me as being strict Republican. I follow Republican principles. I'm the only candidate talking about cutting taxes, property tax, which a mayor can do, which is imperative to keep businesses here and landlords from fleeing. We need to cut the corporate tax. We need to cut the income tax because a lot of millennials and Gen Zers who develop skills by going to college, we told them to do that, can't afford to live here, so they're migrating out of here where they're getting better opportunities in Texas, Florida, Georgia, North Carolina, South Carolina, Tennessee. If we don't do any of that, this city is just going to continue to be in peril. And Zoran Mandami doesn't have any answers. And Andrew Cuomo, as governor, basically set the template for what we're seeing now, the dissolution of New York City right before our eyes.
So something just dawned on me, and I want to ask you this. Why have you never run for public advocate?
Public advocate?
Yeah.
What does a public advocate do other than advocate for himself? Public advocate position is a fake position that was set up when they discontinued the Board of Estimate and they had a city council president. So they had to find room for patronage for 60 jobs. They created the public advocate, and every one of them, except for Betsy Gottbaum, have used that as a staging area for higher office. Tish James, Attorney General, right? We saw Bill de Blasio, who ran for mayor. Jumaane Williams has run for every conceivable position. Lieutenant governor, ran for governor in the primary against Hochul, lost. He wanted to be mayor. Remember, he wanted Eric Adams out. So public advocate, there's no advocating for the public. The mayor has the control. He appoints the commissioners. If he or she is doing their job right, the city council would not be the power base. Right now in the city of New York, while Eric Adams is in Albania, for what reason I have no idea, Adrienne Adams is the mayor. Everybody knows that. She's, as Reggie Jackson used to say, as the Yanks were on the cusp of either getting knocked out by the Toronto Blue Jays or moving on in the playoffs, Adrienne Adams, the city council speaker, is the straw that stirs the drink in City Hall.
So how would it be a Republican Curtis Sliwa mayor and a pretty liberal city council? How's that?
Liberal, progressive, Democratic, Socialist of America. I benefited for 13 years. I raised 2 boys with Melinda Katz. She was the city councilwoman. Before that, assemblywoman. She was head of land use. She became borough president. She's now the Democratic DA in Queens. I observed, she explained to me, I'm a city council person. I need discretionary funds because every time I go to a meeting, people want this project or that project, a new playground, they need a new road, they need potholes filled, they need this. I need discretionary funds, capital improvement funds. The speaker has some, the mayor has some. So what you have to do is go into all 51 councilmanic districts, friends or foes. You have a town hall meeting. They beat you up unmercifully. You're like a human piñata. You got to suck it up and listen. Then you have a private meeting with the staff and the council person. The staff does 97% of the work, so they're the ones who are going to follow up on it. And you as mayor say, I only want your vote on one issue. You gave $55 million to migrants, but only $4 million to veterans. I want that increased. That's personal to me. We need to be taking care of our veterans, not migrants. And what are the things you need? And then they tell you, we need this capital. Okay. And you make a deal.
So you need to negotiate is what you're saying.
Yeah, but you got to go into the districts. You don't do it from City Hall. Now, Eric Adams, the only way to get him in a district, open up a nightclub, let him cut the blue ribbon. He'd be there to the break of dawn. He was the swagger man with no plan. That's why he's no longer running for mayor. He imploded.
All right. I'm going to shift gears. So you, more than any other candidate in this election, has voiced a position on animal welfare. You're the city's cat daddy, basically, right? A proud cat daddy. In fact, you're running not only on the Republican line, but also on the Protect Animals line. We've never had that before. You are for Riders Law. We know that. Getting rid of the carriage horses. Okay. You've also talked a lot about the city's animal shelters, and I want to take a bit of a deeper dive into that. I do want to play a clip of something that you said a little bit over a month ago, and WABC aired the video of it on YouTube. I just want to play that, and then I want to take a deeper dive. So here we go. Here we go.
Both I and Nancy have cared for and rescued so many cats who are in line to be euthanized, executed by the shelter system of New York City, which is called Animal Care and Control, which receives a subsidy from New York City of $57 million a year. And if you surrender your dog or cat or other animal, there's no guarantee that they're going to be able to foster out your beloved friend, because you can't take care of it any longer for any number of reasons. You're going into a hospital. You can barely care for yourself. You're short on money. But I will tell you, there is a death row list of pending executions that are intended for certain cats and dogs. You can actually see it online. My wife, Nancy, when she goes and scrolls through it every day, weeps.
Okay, so that's the gist of it. I do, just for a point of transparency, I am a monthly financial supporter of ACC. I have emceed their New York's Kindest Gala twice, in 2014 and 2015. I have a video blog on animal rescue called All for Animals TV that I've been doing since 2009. Okay. Just to point out some facts. So ACC actually hasn't been animal care and control for 10 years, 11 years, since 2014. It is Animal Care Centers in New York. That was a rebranding that they did. I spoke to them, and they tell us that it's not a $57 million budget this fiscal year, $37 million, including $5 million for the mortgage for the Queen Shelter, which is on private property that ACC owns, as opposed to city property, the other shelters, including the new one that's being done in the Bronx that's not yet open. They tell us the euthanasia rate in 2006, their worst year on record, was 44% of the animals killed, 56% placement rate. Placement, just FYI, means direct adoptions out to other rescues or return to owner if it's a lost animal. Last year, they had an average 94% placement rate. 89% dogs, 92% cats, 96% for rabbits, and 99% of guinea pigs. So basically, the euthanasia rate last year was 6%. Big difference from 20 years ago. My question to you is this, and I ask you this knowing how much you really, really care. So don't be mad.
No, not at all.
ACC expressed to us that your use of the word execution, an execution list, they believe that does, never mind even the people.
Right.
They believe that does the animals a disservice, because who would want to go to a shelter to adopt a pet where they're executing? You know what I'm saying? So is it fair to say that it's not fair to imply that the people who are working there, the volunteers who are cleaning the cages and scooping the poop and walking the dogs and playing with the dogs in the backyards they have and taking pictures of social media, and who are frankly busting their butts to try to get these animals into homes, is it fair to paint them potentially as executioners?
Well, if you're on death row, you get executed, right? I mean, some of the animals are going to get executed. What do you say? Euthanizing, they get killed. I believe in no-kill shelters. They do it in Austin. They do it in Los Angeles.
But are they getting 20,000 animals a year, 55 animals a day?
Yeah, a lot of animals. Remember, you just had the fires in Los Angeles that consumed so much acreage. So the point being is we have all these storefronts now empty, right? Empty. They're not going to be filled up anytime soon. If you were to take and transport some of the animals and put them in the storefronts and have rescue groups care for them, because these are mostly women but men who really love animals, I guarantee you people will be passing by and they'll be snatching up the dogs, cats, and other animals with the provision. If you can't care for them, if it doesn't work out, just return the animal to this location.
So are you talking about the city subsidizing? Like, who's going to pay for that is what I'm saying. And would that be part of, so ACC has something called the New Hope Program,
correct,
which is since 2003, the Mayor's Alliance for New York City Animals was created. It was to get the euthanasia rate down. And one of the programs, they had Wheels of Hope, the transport program, Adopt-A-Palooza, mega adoption events, which I emceed a bunch of those. But the New Hope Program, for the first time in 2003, allowed other 501c3s to come in and pull those animals out. That's how gotten the euthanasia rate down.
Totally
because if you're getting 55 animals a day, if you build it, they will come. How many shelters can you have?
Give you an example, because Nancy and I have been to the shelters. There's a shoebox in Staten Island that you can barely find all the way in the South Shores in a mall. The shelter on Linden Boulevard that they now closed down for rehab,
renovations,
is in the most dangerous neighborhood in all the city of New York.
All right, so just because we don't have like a ton of time now, you as Mayor Sliwa, so are you talking about the city paying for these storefronts to fund for the rescue groups? You talking about building more shelters? What are you talking about as a plan?
There are so many animal lovers, particularly women, as you know, who own property, which we have empty storefronts, would be more than happy to turn that property over with an agreement with the city and Animal Care and Control, or as you say, their rename. That's how you move animals, to get them into a place other than a shelter.
But with city money?
It may not even require city money. There's so many philanthropies that exist where people are more likely to donate to help animals than they would people. I mean, I found that. Look, a Pew Research study just published said 97% of people in America, whether they voted for Trump, Harris, actually view their pets as family members. That's a first time. So I believe the generosity of New Yorkers will come forward once you lay out this plan. We want to adopt as many animals out quickly as possible with the provision. If you can't handle it, which sometimes happens, you return the animal, and then we get another place to place them.
And just so we're clear, you're not looking to demonize the people that work at the city shelters.
No. I've dealt with a lot of them, especially the volunteers. I will say that new center in Ridgewood, the Paul Vallone Center, he died much too young. He was a city councilman, a real animal lover. They had a top area that was supposed to be for the dog run. They end up parking their cars there. It's like, that's for the dogs. You have space for people, but there should be more space for the dogs and cats and other animals.
It's interesting because, and they're telling me in my ear, gotta wrap.
Yes.
But this is our topic.
Yes.
You know what I mean? Because I'm into this too.
Yes.
They did tell ACC Manhattan said that you went up there on July 21st. You were outside with the camera crew. You didn't go in. They would have welcomed you in. So would you be willing to sit down and really have a heart-to-heart with them about what might be done?
What they should do is take off from their ban list of adoptions to my wife and others that they don't want to adopt to any longer. We have to do it through second channels and third channels, because they don't like people who criticize them. They have to have transparency, because not everybody's going to agree with them. If they're doing a good job, we would certainly praise them. We just think the job could be done better.
Okay. And let's just give a plug to Missy, who's been at the shelter for 565 days.
Wow.
Which was unheard of.
And it's
20 years ago, that would have been unheard of, right? A year and a half.
See the kind of dog it is, the breed?
Right, exactly,
they
exactly.
Are the
and probably
to place, except when thugs come in, and you can't let the thugs take the pit bulls away, because then they use it for fighting. They abuse them. They'll toss them off the roof of a public housing project if they don't do a Michael Vick performance so as to not weaken the breed line. No, that'll all stop when I'm mayor. That'll all stop.
All right, and if you have catios at Gracie Mansion, I'll come help feed the
Well,
cats.
remember, the president made fun of us that I and Nancy would house unwanted cats there. Look, that's the least everybody loves animals. The president's got to understand. You want to criticize me? He actually did me a favor by criticizing me and Nancy for that, because we've never had more donations come in on a single day for our campaign.
There you go. All right, thank you so much. This has been terrific. We went a little long, but I think it was worth it, and we really appreciate your time.
I appreciate the time in honor of Stan Brooks and Juliet Papa that I used to purloin information from and use it on my broadcast at WABC. I do my mea culpas right here in the epicenter of news broadcasting. In 22 minutes, we give you the world, WINS.
We have you trained. That's fantastic. Thank you so much. Thank you, everybody, for watching. I want to give a special shout out to Steph Patella, our associate producer extraordinaire. We really appreciate you. Join us here on Thursday, 12 noon, for Democratic candidate Zohran Mamdani, and we hope to see you then. Thanks.